Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5, Episode 6 of the WeCOACH Podcast, presented by our partner, Hudl, on WIS Sports. Hudl is leveling the playing field for women in sports, both through the technology they create and important events like Breakthrough Summit, co-created with WeCOACH. All podcast episodes are inspired by the collective input from our WeCOACH community. Please join us every 2 weeks for thought-provoking discussions focused on timely topics of national significance impacting the coaching profession. I'll be your host, Vanessa Fuchs, CEO of WeCOACH, a one-of-a-kind nonprofit dedicated to offering year-round growth and leadership development to recruit, advance, and retain women coaches in all sports and levels. This podcast is a co-production of WIS Sports and WeCOACH. WIS Sports is the world's largest podcast network for women's sports with more than 3 million podcast listeners worldwide. We look forward to bringing you new shows dropping every other Thursday. Well, goodbye, summer, and hello, new academic year. I find myself saying it every year that it feels like the summer flies by so fast. And what better way to begin a new academic year than with a new WeCOACH podcast episode? In our last episode, we provided a sneak preview of our WeCOACH Enhanced Member Benefits program by featuring some of our member benefit partners who will pour into our WeCOACH community. And speaking of our partners, I'm really excited for today's conversation. Joining me is United States Marine Corps Captain Elizabeth J. Vincent, Officer Selection Officer for Northern Indiana. The Marines are a longtime, outstanding WeCOACH partner, and we can't say enough about how grateful we are for the continued growth of our relationship and the incredible support the U.S. Marine Corps provides to our WeCOACH community. The Marines will also be featured later this month as one of our member benefit program partners. Captain Vincent, first, thank you for your service to protect our country, and welcome to the WeCOACH Podcast. I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Vanessa. I'm very excited to be here. The WeCOACH Podcast has been very inspirational for women everywhere and a great partner to the Marine Corps. So I really enjoy listening to it, and it's just a pleasure to be invited. Feel free to just call me Elizabeth if you'd like.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth. Really excited to get to know you a little bit here and learn about your leadership role with the Marines. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I want to first just start by talking about you, the person, Elizabeth Vincent. Before we discuss your Marine Corps service, how about you talk a little bit about your background so our listeners get to know you a little bit more? Where were you born? Where were you raised? Feel free to share a little bit about your family if you'd like, personal interests and hobbies. What's most important for our listeners to know about you?
Yeah, well, I come from a small town in Michigan called St. John's, which is part of my reason for wanting to come back to the Midwest. I have a wonderful and supportive family, a sister who actually served in the military as well. She did 8 years in the National Guard. I'm also happily married, 6 years, to my wonderful husband, Andrew, and he's going on 12 years in the Army Reserves. I'm actually 5 months pregnant with our first baby, and we also have 2 adorable French bulldogs, Diesel and Pepper. And then as far as my hobbies go, I grew up playing sports, basketball, volleyball, snowboarding, actually. You got to find something to do in the winters in Michigan. Wrestling, softball, and then most recently started dabbling in bodybuilding and actually picked up my my pro card for that. My main focus, however, was softball. I played in college at a community college for a while. But overall, I've just been very interested in being part of a team. And I believe that my success in the Marine Corps definitely stemmed from the experiences that I had in team sport and the mentors that I had in high school and college sports as well.
Congratulations on your pregnancy. Very exciting news. And I want to also thank your family for their service to our country. And I think we're going to get along just fine. I spent and lived 7 years in Indianapolis working at the NCAA. It was an incredible opportunity for me working at the national office during those 7 years. I love Indiana. And I also own 2 French bulldogs. So we have lots in common right off the bat here. I affectionately refer to them as the uncoachables. Phoenix and Frankie are my 2 French bulldogs, female and male. And I think I can agree with everything you said except snowboarding. I'll have to save for another episode my unfortunate snowboarding incident the last time I was in Utah. It didn't end so well for me with a broken wrist. But enough about that. Really appreciate you sharing a little bit about yourself. And, as I was learning more about you, it looks like when you were in high school, you started to explore the Marine Corps. And I'm curious to hear from you. What motivated and inspired you to take the step to look into enlistment options? And can you talk us through that exploratory process?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for me, I knew that I always wanted kind of a exciting and adventurous life. I wanted more than just a desk job or working for a cause or a person that I didn't believe in. So job satisfaction to me was always more important than a paycheck. And I wanted to be challenged. I was a pretty tough kid, thanks to my parents and my older cousins. So I decided pretty early on that I wanted to serve. My family's always been quite patriotic. So then my choice really just came down to where I would be most challenged. And that was unquestionably the Marine Corps.
For anyone that might be going through that same evaluation process, can you talk a little bit about U.S. Marine Corps enlistment? What advice do you have for them? Are there some resources where they can go to take advantage of?
Yeah, absolutely. So my advice will always be to talk to a Marine, whether that be a family member, a friend, somebody who graduated earlier in high school than you and joined the Marine Corps, or even your local recruiter or officer selection officer. That's really going to be the best way to get your questions answered. You can even find a lot of us on social media platforms. For instance, I'm on Instagram. You can find me at Captain_VEE. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And a lot of recruiters or military personnel in general would be happy to answer your questions. But if you aren't ready to talk to anyone in person just yet, you can also do research on your own at marines.com or marineofficer.com.
Awesome. Thank you for that information, and really appreciate you also offering to be a resource for individuals who are considering enlisting. You mentioned at the top of the show, you were a multi-sport athlete, softball, basketball, and snowboarding and bodybuilding now. And you were named a team captain. You also graduated with the highest academic distinction, summa cum laude. You've been the recipient of numerous awards and decorations throughout your service in the Marine Corps. So it's clear you've led and found success every stop along the way in your career. So tell us how the skills you learned through participation in sport, as well as the fighting spirit you've cultivated through your Marine Corps service, empowered you to lead and achieve success in all aspects of your life.
Yeah, that's a great question. There are so many values that are taught in sports that directly translate into being a successful adult. And especially for the Marine Corps, which has such a team atmosphere. Some values taught to me by many, many amazing coaches throughout my athletic career were things like values such as, dedication, selflessness, initiative, discipline, courage, all of which kind of guided my path to becoming a leader. And then, eventually a leader of Marines, and being responsible for their welfare. It's a big responsibility to take that on. And I think that team sports in general teaches you to be completely responsible for yourself. And having been a team captain, you take on the responsibility of the team. So that really prepared me well for my career later on. A good Marine officer or a leader in any field puts their team first. The awards, the recognitions, they all come by just doing the right thing and working hard for the people to your left and your right. And the Marine Corps embodies those principles. And it's something that I'll take with me for the rest of my life, even as a mother, and hopefully one day a coach. So all in all, sports in general, team sports especially, have really prepared me to be a leader of Marines. And I can't thank, my coaches and everybody who's mentored me enough for instilling those values in me. Definitely prepared me to be a leader.
We talk about this all the time, right? The skill sets, the leadership, the values you learn from participation in sport, from not only as a student athlete, but then if you pivot into coaching, and we've even seen coaches leave the coaching profession and go and lead in other ways, such as consultants and experts in their field, helping to now lead coaches and student athletes as a consultant. And so certainly everything you said as far as the values and leaderships are transferable, and it's something we discuss all the time. We're going to get back to the comment you just made about aspiring to be a coach once you complete your service with the Marines. But first, you serve as an officer selection officer for Northern Indiana, covering universities such as Purdue, Notre Dame, Valparaiso, and Indiana Tech, which I will mention, there are WeCOACH schools within that mix that I just mentioned. Thank you for your support. What exactly does that role, officer selection officer, entail? And what does your day-to-day service in the Marines look like?
Well, Vanessa, I've been a lot of places in my career, including, Norway and Afghanistan. So coming to Indiana to work with college students was a big change and a challenge for me. But once I got started, I quickly realized that my role here with the college students was one of the most important in the Marine Corps. And that is finding, mentoring, and shaping the next generation of military leadership, which arguably is the most important aspect of this job. And it's kind of hard to describe my day-to-day because it seems like it's always different. But most days I spend with officer candidates, helping them to prepare for the rigors of training and ultimately leading Marines. And the ways that I prepare them are typically mentally, obviously, for, training and going to officer candidate school, but also morally and physically for just the rigors that they're going to be going through. It's a challenge in itself because, like any team sport or challenge that a coach might have, every candidate or athlete is just a little bit different, and their needs and motivators are different. So every day seems like a new adventure here at the OST, and I'm loving my job here. And there's nothing better than mentoring the next generation.
Well said. I love that. And it sounds like the leadership experiences you've gained through your service with the Marines will serve you well with anything you decide to do with your life, but certainly in the role as in coaching. And I want to stop and focus on what you just said for a moment here, because I think it's important that our WeCOACH women coaches community understands how the Marines can engage in their communities, with their campuses, within their athletics departments, and with the teams that they serve and their student athletes through leadership talks, workshops, workouts, and even more. And it's called the Marines Influencer Program. And this program has an aligned mission similar to what we've been discussing in terms of the types of leadership skills, learning to fight through adversity that coaches work to achieve daily with their teams, to advance today's youth, equip them with knowledge to be lifelong learners, teach them resilience to fight, win, and overcome conflicts, challenges, obstacles. So could you share a little bit more with our listeners about the influencer program and elaborate on the invaluable skills that coaches and their teams can gain to enhance morale, culture, and teamwork?
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, Vanessa. So having done both competitive sports and served in the military, there are so many invaluable skills that cross between the two, which is why the Marine Corps has put such an emphasis on our influencer program, which not only exposes coaches and players to the Marine Corps, but it also teaches players and coaches leadership and how to face those challenges and obstacles head on. And one way we do this, or one way that I do this with my colleges, is by hosting leadership cohesion exercises, which is where I take over a day of practice with the team, basically. And we start by doing some physical training, which is going to be Marine Corps style, of course. And then we take up we set up obstacles. For example, we might set up like a lane of cones, and the team will cycle through trying to get through the cones blindfolded without touching any. I call it the blind minefield. There is one leader who gives instructions while the rest of the team holds a plank position. This seems like a really simple exercise, but what I preach while the team is conducting it is that the leader has to use clear and concise guidance and has to know that teammate very well. Because they have to know how to give direction to that individual. Not everybody takes direction the same. And then for the blindfolded teammate, I teach them that active listening and being coachable is one of the pillars of being part of a team. And then lastly, the plank adds just a little bit of friction, causing frustration, which you often see when playing team sports in the middle of a game. So we add that frustration, and the lesson there is that no matter how tired you get, you have to continue to support the team, because a divided team doesn't go anywhere. And those principles are the same in the Marine Corps. So once all of the obstacles are complete, we typically end the practice with a leadership discussion where I ask some really hard questions that maybe a coach isn't comfortable asking. So it's nice to have us there. I ask, what is your team's biggest problem? How can we as a team fix it? And what can you personally work on that would benefit the success of the team? All in all, it's usually a really great experience for both myself and the coaches and players to learn a little bit about the Marine Corps. Obviously, I share some of my experiences and show how the Marine Corps develops leaders. But it's also good for the coaches to gain a little bit of a different perspective on leadership and teamwork. It's a great opportunity for me to get back on the field and be part of a team again and influence, again, the next generation of leadership.
I spent 12 years on campus at Florida State University, and I regret saying that I was not aware of the influencer program during my tenure as an administrator on Florida State's campus. But I've done a lot of reading. I've watched some videos, and it's evident that the coaches around the country that have taken advantage of the influencer program and brought the Marines to conduct, like you said, leadership cohesion exercises. These are really team building leadership workshops that are incredibly impactful for these young people and helps to bring that cohesion, like you said, for their programs. And I wish I would have known about it during my time on campus, but certainly trying to help spread the word amongst our WeCOACH community of this invaluable opportunity. Another unique aspect of the influencer program that's available to coaches specifically are their coaches workshops. And so can you talk a little bit about how our coaches could benefit from participating in these coaches workshops through the influencer program?
Yes, absolutely. So both high school and college coaches alike can participate in these workshops. Typically, the easiest way is by contacting their local enlisted or officer recruiter. You can also go to marines.com/influencer as well to find more information. But this past year, I brought several coaches from Notre Dame and other universities in my area to these workshops. The coaches are brought to either one of the Marine Corps depots, recruit depots, or the officer candidate school for essentially what's, a sneak peek behind the curtains of how we train our Marines. They get to participate in leadership reaction courses, leadership discussions, and they actually get to see Marines in training as well, all of which teach coaches new tactics to build team camaraderie and really develop their team's values. Now, we like our coaches to have a little bit of fun as well. So we let them do things like the obstacle course. They get to sometimes fly in helicopters, even eat MREs, which can be fun for your first time. All in all, it's typically a great time to the coaches, and they walk away having learned how to develop leaders within their prospective programs, which obviously is great for them. And it's great for us to share our experience as Marines as well.
And I probably should have mentioned this from the top, but I'm aware that some programs will pay for some leadership team building type workshops. These services offered through the Marines and through the Marines Influencer Program are free of charge, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Amazing. You hear that, WeCOACH community? Free. What about some more information? Where can they go to get more information about the Influencer Program?
Yeah, like I said, local recruiters are going to have information, especially for high school coaches. And then for our college coaches out there, talking to an officer selection officer like myself will be your best bet. If you don't know who your officer selection officer is, you can also go to marines.com/influencer.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And thank you, U.S. Marine Corps, for partnering with WeCOACH to offer this incredible program for our members, the Marines Influencer Program. Captain Vincent, I'd like to pivot and talk about some experiences that you've had personally with the Marines. What's your most rewarding or personally fulfilling experience you've had so far as a Marine?
Oof, that's a hard one. But I think my favorite part of being a Marine officer is seeing my Marines be successful. There's really nothing better in this job than, promoting or commissioning or even awarding Marines that you helped to develop into the leader that they are today. So in listening to a lot of the coaches on this podcast, I know they feel the same. There's truly no better feeling. And on a personal level, though, I really love to travel and experience new cultures. There's nothing quite like getting to do the things you love and getting paid to do it.
Couldn't agree more. I love what you said. It kind of reminds me of a mantra that I like to say, lift as we rise. So as you've continued to advance in your career with the Marines, you're reaching back and lifting up the next generation of Marines, lift as we rise. And I think that's such a powerful concept that we're empowering the next generation. And the same goes for our coaching community. That's exactly what they do day in and day out. It's incredible dedication of what they do to commit their lives and careers to empowering our next generation of leaders. Let's talk a little bit about the biggest challenge, maybe, if you're willing to share, that you've faced in your life and how skills that you've gained through sport as well as through the Marines have allowed you to triumph over that challenge.
Absolutely. So I am, among many other things, a combat veteran. I volunteered to go to Afghanistan in 2019. And while my experience was probably slightly less chaotic than what many of the listeners here have probably seen in movies such as, Band of Brothers or other Marine Corps movies like Full Metal Jacket or something along those lines, all the same, a firefight is mentally and physically challenging. And when you're in that type of environment, you tend to revert back and rely on your training. And that training for me really started in team sports, where I learned all the values that I mentioned earlier, but also just to put the team first and to focus on winning and to focus on the mission. And of course, I was trained by the fiercest fighting organization in the world, the United States Marine Corps. So in a time where most would feel terrified, I felt very confident in the skills that I've been taught throughout my career. But going back to coaches and the impact that they really have on their athletes, I mean, it's a little dramatic in most cases, but those skills can really be life or death, success or failure. In my case, it was. So when you're a coach, leader, or mentor to someone, you really have to take that responsibility to heart. And I take that to heart as a leader of Marines. It's my responsibility to make sure that they're taken care of. And I thank God every day for the mentors that I had in my life, both in sports and in my career as a Marine.
It's an incredible commitment, sacrifice, and we can't thank you enough for how you lead. Wanted to also spend a little time talking about some of your long-term goals in terms of your service with the Marines, but maybe also touch on your aspirations of coaching one day.
Yeah, absolutely. At 7 years of service, Vanessa, I've hit a lot of my goals that I'd had hoped for in being a Marine officer. And like I had mentioned, I wanted a challenge. I wanted to lead and coach Marines. And overall, I wanted to just serve the country that I love. And at this point in my career, I've really gotten to do all of those things. So next year, I'll actually be transitioning out of the Marine Corps. I'm going to start my new career of being a mother. But also, I do have other goals. I want to use the education benefits that the Marine Corps has provided me with to go back to school. I'm hoping to get a master's degree and still kind of deciding what I want that to be, potentially an MBA, potentially leadership and management. But I'd like one day to own my own business and potentially to coach softball. Collegiate softball would be my goal. And the University of Michigan would be the dream. I mean, they have such a great program. So, Coach Hutchins, if you're listening.
Coach Hutchins is definitely a member of our WeCOACH community. She helped us most recently with rolling out our 50th anniversary campaign, and we're thrilled to have her. Certainly winningest softball coach ever in the history. And I'll tell you, I really do believe this. If that's something that you hope to achieve, coaching softball, I think any institution around the country would be fortunate to have you leading their student athletes. So I wish you all the best as you prepare for that career pivot. And certainly we welcome you as one of our newest members of our WeCOACH community. We really do appreciate you sharing your insights today. There's one question that we like to ask at the end of every podcast episode. And since you aspire to be a coach, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Can you give advice for how we move the numbers in terms of supporting and increasing the number of women coaches in all sports and levels? Certainly, diversity in the military has been a longstanding issue, something the U.S. Armed Forces have been intentionally working to address in recent years. And only a few weeks ago, we saw U.S. Marine Corps General Michael Langley made history as the first Black four-star general in the Marines' 246-year history. Just an amazing, amazing honor and recognition and feat of achievement for him. A similar effort to address the lack of diversity is being made in the world of sport. It's certainly the primary reason why WeCOACH exists in our mission to advance more women and coaches of color in this profession. So in your role, assisting with the recruitment of future Marines, what's your reaction when hearing about General Langley and his achievement as a four-star general, but also specific initiatives or practices that are implemented by the Marines to advance people of color and women that you feel might be effective for helping athletics increase diversity?
So there are a lot of questions here, but first I would love to address just how important General Langley's accomplishment is. For reference, there are only 3 4-star generals in the entire Marine Corps. And his promotion is truly helping to encourage diversity in military leadership by showing simply that it can be done. The military in general has been a little bit of a white male dominated establishment. And similarly with coaching. But in the last 30 years or so, women and diversity have really stepped up and proven that we have a place here as well. For example, today we have several female infantry platoon commanders and artillerymen and other women in combat arms. And those are the women that I looked up to when starting my journey as a Marine officer. So to answer your question of what I think we can do to increase the number of women in coaching or similarly women in the military, my answer is to just do what I'm doing today and advocate. Share your story, hopefully inspire the next generation to take the hard road, to work hard and achieve their aspirations, and really know that the sky's the limit for you. But you have to be willing to work for it. And I think as long as we continue to advocate as women, and obviously this podcast is doing a fantastic job of doing that. But as long as we continue to advocate, young women will see coaches like Coach Hutchins and military leaders like General Langley as role models and mentors. And as long as we continue to do that, I believe we can really start to change the numbers and really start to prove that women are meant to be here. because we are. And I think that General Langley is just one of many to come.
Well said. Well said. Thank you for being a role model. Thank you for advocating for the advancement of diversity. And congratulations to General Langley. Certainly, as young people watch from around our country and look up to him, they start to catch a vision for their own life and know that they too can achieve the status of a 4-star general because he's opened that door. So thrilled for that opportunity. You know, we have a saying with WeCOACH that if she can see her, she can be her. And I've always believed that there's enough room for everyone. And we are at our best when everyone is represented in the room. We are wrapping up here, but I want to encourage our WeCOACH community. Check out the Marines Influencer Program. Coaches all over the country attest that this program has served to elevate not only them as a coach, but also impart critical leadership, teamwork, and culture on their teams. And to learn more, again, you can go to rmi.marines.com/influencer. That's all the time. Unfortunately, I feel like I could talk all day with you, Captain Vincent, but that's all the time we have for today. United States Marine Corps Captain Elizabeth J. Vincent, Officer Selection Officer in Northern Indiana. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and we wish you continued success and leadership. And to our partners, the U.S. Marine Corps, thank you for not only supporting WeCOACH, but most importantly, for your dedication to protecting and defending our nation. You are a special, special part of our WeCOACH community. Thanks for listening to episode 6 of the WeCOACH Podcast, season 5. And thank you again to our sponsor, Hudl, and production partner WIS Sports. Please follow us and share your comments on the WeCOACH and WIS Sports social media accounts. And please visit our website at wecoachsports.org to learn more about our upcoming events, resources, membership, and donor options. Until next time, keep moving the numbers. We teach, we inspire, we motivate, we lead. WeCOACH.